welcome back to The Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
Pretty good to yourself.
I am very, very well, yes, very well. Yeah, what you been up to? Been up to much?
No, not really.
The wonders of lockdown.
It's, SSDD, as they say, isn't it? I mean, it's like,
It pretty much is these days, isn't it? Yeah, not a lot going on.
Yeah, the sort of weird limbo land of very little. I'm trying to remember. I have actually seen a couple of movies that I won't tell you what I've seen, but I've already got stuff I've seen for next week.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I watched.
Well, I will tell you one I've seen.
Oh, go on.
I will tell you, because it's like I have seen New Mutants because it's been.
Oh wow! Do you know that's been on my list for a long time? I keep looking at it and I'm like,
not gonna say anything.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say anything until next week, but yeah, I've seen that.
Oh, okay. I'm interested to see what you make of that because you were reasonably excited for that. Well, I think we all were at first.
I love the New Mutants. I think
I don't, but I just
stories are great.
I've never read it.
The Demon Bear Saga is really good.
Okay,
and that's basically what this is.
Well, that's good. I've never read it, but I loved the idea of a Marvel horror movie. And I think that's where I'm a little disappointed because it feels like they've not gone that direction in the end through all the reshoots and God knows what. But we'll talk about it.
I'm keeping stuff.
Yeah.
I nearly said stuff then, and I'm not going to.
Oh no! Don't do that. But yeah, that's good. I can finally talk about Aniline City as well, which is nice.
What's that?
Well, briefly, it's a project that I was approached to be a part of. I don't know, a month or so ago, a couple of months ago. But it's I was kind of waiting for them to announce it before I could really say much about it. It's basically Aniline City Stories, and it's www.aniline.city.
Okay.
It's starting as an audiobook. I've been asked to write an episode. I've written an episode and given it to them. But it's based in this fictional city in America called Aniline City. It's sort of Michigan area. And it's basically a noir detective kind of series. And the audiobook follows... I can't really talk about the plot, but each episode follows different characters. I've written one of the episodes. And the idea is that it starts off as an audiobook. And it's going to be free for everyone to listen to online. And then it's going to expand from there. So they're going to do, who knows what, TV shows or whatever they want to do with it.
Nice.
They're planning on doing with it. I think there was talk of pitching it to studios and stuff. So it's very exciting. But so I wrote the episode a while ago and run it by the person who's in charge of it all and wrote the idea and the concept and he really liked it and I was like, oh, awesome. But then it was like, I can't talk about it. So I had to wait until now. But yeah, Aniline City, good fun.
Oh, great.
Other than that, like you, nothing going on in life. So let's talk about what we are here to talk about today, which I'm really excited about. Because as we were just saying offline, as a kid, I thought this was the most boring film ever.
I hated this movie when I was a kid.
So did I, right? Yeah, so I'm glad. We started in the same place then. Because I think it wasn't the first one I saw, which doesn't help. Now,
no, I think Wrath of Khan was probably the first one I saw.
That's probably given away what we're talking about. So we are talking about Star Trek The Motion Picture. And like you, I am pretty sure... that Wrath of Khan was the first Star Trek movie I saw. Obviously, I'd seen the TV series, but the first film I saw was Wrath of Khan. And let's be honest, from a writing perspective, it's all downhill from there, really. That's just, unfortunately, and direction and everything, really. I mean, Wrath of Khan he's not just... I've always said that Wrath of Khan is not just a good Star Trek movie, it's a good movie. If you don't like Star Trek at all, I would be surprised if you watched that film and thought it was rubbish or got nothing from it. It's a well-written... It's a classical story, obviously. It's a revenge story.
What that one does that a lot of the other ones don't do is literally it picks up, and even if you don't know the characters of Kirk and Spock and stuff, you get a feel for their relationships quite quickly. You get a an idea of what the structure of the crew is and all that. And you don't really need a lot of backstory because it kind of fills you in on it as you're going,
which is interesting
enough that you don't need it.
It's very interesting that because even the villain of the film is from a previous Star Trek episode. Space Seed. So it's interesting that they managed to reintroduce these characters, and you can just watch the movie without having ever met them. And I think that film, in a response to Star Trek: The Motion Picture, The Wrath of Khan behaves like a new movie. It's like they've never made a movie before, so we're going to reintroduce everyone and where they are.
I think that was it. I think that's one of the problems with this movie, the motion picture, is that even the crew, even Shatner and none of them like this movie either.
No.
So none of them were happy with this movie. They all think this kind of what we do is it's a pretty movie. It's beautiful.
It's oh my goodness,
probably the most beautiful of the movies.
I think it is. Yeah,
the characterization is pretty bad.
Mm.
None of them like the fact that they didn't feel like themselves, or their characters, as it were. And in certainly, I think they were editing this movie right up until the premiere. I think literally the guy who was editing walked into the theater with the
like the version that they were going to show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So none of them had seen what it was like, and I think Shatner says after he saw it at the premiere, he said, "That's it, that's dead. They're never going to make another movie after this."
It's amazing, isn't it, to think that what might have been. I mean, Wrath of Khan did clearly, revitalize and save Trek really from the motion picture.
Completely. When you think about it, when you think about that, people were so burned by this. Most of the audience didn't go to see the Wrath of Khan when it first came out.
Yeah, that's very true. But it's interesting because, and I think it's a combination of two things for me. I think I'm a lot older now. I appreciate slow movies now. It doesn't bother me like it did when I was a kid.
Yeah, same here.
Like 2001 bored the shit out of me when I was a kid, but I can love that film for its visuals and the 20 minutes of good story in the middle.
Movie still bores me now.
It's boring, but I can watch it.
I do like that movie, but it's a movie that I can't watch. Like I could watch The Wrath of Khan or something. It's a movie I can watch again, but I have to have a couple of years in between.
Yes, and I can appreciate. I could certainly watch the 20 minutes of like real story in the middle. But everything else around it, I agree. But again, as a kid, I hated it. As an adult, I can appreciate it, and I really do like the visuals. And there's a lot in 2001 that I think is actually really, really good. And it's the same with this. It's that I think as I got older, I don't mind a slower story. I think as well. No. Nowadays, and I don't want to get into this because we've said how we feel about modern Trek, but with the Abrams movies and with Discovery and all of the end of Picard and all of that stuff, it's nice to see a Star Trek film with no villain. It's nice to see a Star Trek film about science, and it's just it's absolutely Star Trek. It's a Star Trek episode on the big screen.
It's the most cerebral of Star Trek episodes, is it? They take away all the battles and all the that stuff. So it has that. I mean, they clearly wanted to make 2001.
This film
completely see the influences of 2001, like all the way through this movie.
The loving shots of the ship. The length of time it takes for pretty much anything to happen in this film is a testament to its kind of dedication to 2001's visual style and storytelling style in a way. Although there is more obviously more plot going on here than during 2001, which has long time of not very much happening. But should we just get into it, and we can kind of
why not?
talk through it as we go. So we start with the Starfleet monitoring station, Epsilon.
Well, did you have one thing I'd completely forgotten about, and I don't know whether you had it on your copy. Did you have the overture on yours?
Yes, which goes on for absolutely ages, and it's just space.
Because I was there sort of thinking.
So I didn't mention this.
My copy.
Well, I didn't mention it.
About the overture.
So the reason I didn't mention it is because I don't ever remember that happening before, and I was just like, "Is my DVD just being weird?" And I was about to like stop it, and then it just the logo came up, and I was like, "Oh, it's just started." Okay, it was just really bizarre. A beautiful score over it though.
Yeah.
I mean, I sat there for longer than I probably should have.
Still feels weird hearing the next gen music.
It does, doesn't it? It's funny that it starts here.
I mean, the first time I would have watched this, next gen wasn't out, so you don't have. I didn't initially have that association with it.
See,
but
I mean,
now
I think
really odd.
I think by the time I got around to seeing this, I'd definitely seen at least some next gen. So I probably associate it with next gen more than this movie, but obviously, this is where that score was started, and a wonderful score. It is Jerry Goldsmith, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. I mean, the music is stunning all the way through.
The whole way through. I love every now and again you get the hint of the original series in there.
It's the logs whenever he's doing a log.
Yes. And it's very subtle.
Whenever he's doing a log,
it's
there.
It's
really quiet.
Nice.
You can just about pick it out. It's
very nice.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you hear some of the traditional Star Trek ship noises in the background as well. Again, not overbearing or in your face, but it's still there.
No,
it's a refit. There's still some of the original ship there. Good stuff. But yes, so we open with that bloody overture, which I actually thought was just on my DVD, and my DVD was being weird.
I did as well. I was thinking. Is it broke? Because there's no picture. What's going on?
So I watched it for ages though, and then I was just about to press stop on the DVD or skip scene, and then the Paramount logo come up, and I was like, oh, okay, that was an interesting choice, but fine.
I don't remember the last movie I saw with an overture at the beginning.
No.
And I don't think a movie's done an overture for about 40 years.
Yeah, it would have to be really earned today. Why are we having an overture? But like I said, well composed, and so we open on the monitoring station, the Starfleet monitoring station, Epsilon 9, which is which I never noticed before, but is regular 1 up the other way. They just turned the model upside down for the next film, I guess. I was watching it and I was like, hang on a minute, that's regular 1, like just the wrong way up. And I think the scale's completely different in this as well. Like it's way bigger in this than it is in Wrath of Khan.
It's huge.
But anyway, so Epsilon 9 detects some massive, huge cloud. I forget how big. It's like 5 AUs or something. They say later on, but
so I was looking at the thing for that, and apparently they changed it from in later versions the size, because apparently the size they initially give, right, it would encompass the whole of our solar system.
Okay.
Apparently, it's something like, I can't remember what the number is, but it's they say something like 60 whatever it is,
right?
And apparently one of those things is the distance between Earth and the Sun.
Okay.
Earth. Yeah, something like that, and it's
I'm pretty sure they say 5 or something like that, rather than 50.
I think they
guess,
changed it for the DVD.
Interesting.
To make it at least a bit smaller. Thank fuck.
Right.
But it's still ridiculous. It's ridiculously huge.
Yes, massive, and I love that. That's one of the things I absolutely love. This alien entity, this cloud in space, is just so massive. It's absolutely huge, and it's moving straight towards Earth. But before it gets there,
well, actually, we don't start with the regular one. We start with the Klingons.
I think it depends which cut you've got, but yes, we get to the 3 Klingons. but in any case, so we get to the 3 Klingons because it's obviously, I guess it's passing either through Klingon space or near Klingon space.
Passing through Klingon space,
right.
Because when they're in the regular one, they pick up the transmissions from the Klingon ships.
That's right.
And one of them says it's in Klingon space, sort of thing.
And we get our first look at the K'tunga class warships in their movie form, and they look absolutely gorgeous.
God,
gorgeous model.
The D7 is one of my favourite ships. Anyway,
absolutely,
I love that ship. That ship, and these ones are just the detail is so ridiculous.
That's the great thing. It takes everything that was great about visually, that was great about TOS, and it just goes into. It's like, we've got a movie budget now. Here's what the models would have looked like if we had the money and the that kind of sophistication to make those kind of models back then. Amazing. I absolutely love those designs. We are also introduced to the new Klingons, the new look of the Klingons, which became the staple for how Klingons looked from then on until Discovery.
I mean, one thing I will say,
they look a bit ropey here.
They look really. Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of
cosplayers.
Old Wolfman. I was thinking old Wolfman makeup.
Yeah, okay.
They look like old Wolfmen with just more ridges.
Just a load of Larry Talbots on the bridge of their.
And that's Mark Leonard as the captain as well.
It is, yes, it is.
How is it's like you can't even recognise his eyes. He's like completely unrecognisable as Mark Leonard.
But it's nice because obviously he was in TOS, he was in TNG, he was in a lot of things, and it is nice to see him here.
What is it? 4 races? I think he's played overall. I think he
played. He was a Romulan. He was. He was obviously Sarek. What else is
Klingon, and I think he's also a human in something as well, or he was supposed to be a human in something, and
he turns up in Enterprise or something.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. That's interesting. I'll have to think. I'm sure he does, but Star Trek does that when they find people they like. Especially character actors. They'll just chuck them in different makeup
and use them. Yeah, absolutely.
And why on earth not? So the Klingons do what Klingons do and shoot. Shoot the giant cloud, and quickly realize that that's not going to work. And we get the wonderful visual as the Klingon ships, I don't know, disintegrate or get. They get converted into.
So not that you would have said it at the time.
No,
but it's kind of like they digitalize them, don't they?
It's pretty much, and that fits in with what happens later.
Because it's got that sort of what's Tron, like what happens to Flynn in Tron, Flynn, isn't it? It's got that sort of feel
and
to
it. I believe there was a deleted scene that I think they cut quite rightly, because I don't think it would necessarily make sense, but I think there was a deleted scene where where V'Ger tries to do that to the Enterprise, and they say that it is going to try and basically add them to its memory.
That's what she says. That's what that's what Aliyah says later on. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. But I think they basically get digitalized, as it were, as information inside V'Ger.
And a wonderful effect, especially for the time. The effects in this movie are incredible for the time.
Yeah, they're brilliant. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, really, really good. Even the really rubbish...
And I think that they were trying to compete with Star Wars and I
think it surpasses Star Wars in a lot of ways. I'm not sure that it surpasses 2001 visually, but certainly Star Wars. Some of the work in this is really, really impressive, I think.
I mean the model of the Enterprise model is 7 foot long. It's huge.
It's my favorite design. We'll get to that very shortly.
Oh yeah.
So obviously, as you say, they fail and then they're digitized or disintegrated. And then Epsilon 9, unfortunately, suffers the same fate.
You don't find that out until the briefing later on, do you?
Yes, absolutely. So we see them investigating.
What I find funny, what made me laugh at though, is the amount of people in this movie that are in spacesuits just floating around that appear to be doing nothing. Because there's one on the station, and the weird thing I thought about the so they know the station know it's coming, right? It's not coming like particularly quickly,
but it's still huge and still coming. It's killed three, isn't it? Three like Katenga class warships. Yeah. Which to like the Federation, that's like the most advanced warships out there. Presumably the Enterprise was refit to kind of keep up with them,
compete with it. Yeah. They don't evacuate.
Which is bizarre.
The station. And two, there's still a guy floating outside.
Yeah, just hanging around.
Brought him in. It's like, what? You might want to come in. You know.
It's a bit weird.
Fucker's still out there.
I think a couple of lines and get rid of the guy outside just to say, like, these people have decided to sacrifice themselves to get the message, get as much as they can, information wise. Would have probably served the script a little better, but yeah.
And I never noticed their badges before. They've got these weird badges with like what looks like a helmet on them.
Yes, I did notice that.
I don't know what the explanation for that is.
I've not seen them since. That's for sure.
No.
But yeah, and then of course, we soon find out that the Enterprise is undergoing a refit. But we go, and I think maybe for the first time we see Starfleet on Earth headquarters. I mean, sometimes like an external shot. Here's and it's a wonderful matte painting. It looks lovely.
I don't remember whether you ever see Starfleet in the original series.
The only time I can remember is when the menagerie, right? You see inside of buildings in Starfleet when they go to meet Pike, but you never see an external. I think it's the first time, and it's really interesting because it's the Golden Gate Bridge, isn't it, and all of that. And that's become like. That's in everything after this. Is in like Next Gen, it's in Enterprise, it's in all the movies. They
completely established that it's in Frisco.
Yes, yeah. It's just great to see. I think as well. Obviously, I wasn't around when this movie came out, but it's wonderful to me to watch it now and think, oh, if I'd only watched the original series, there's so much about this that I'd be so excited to see, because I'm like, oh, we're getting to see this for the first time, we're getting to see San Francisco of the future and see Starfleet headquarters and all of that, and it's all wonderful. And then we are reintroduced to James T. Kirk, who's been promoted to Admiral, and is chief of Starfleet operations. Not happy about it. I guess he accepted the job and then realised it was not for him, or was maybe promoted, and just took the promotion because it came along.
I'm guessing it's he finally took a promotion, thinking, okay, I've probably saved the universe enough. It's probably time to quiet down, and then immediately fucking regretted it.
Well, yes, and I love that this continues all the way through, even to Star Trek Generations. You get the wonderful line from Kirk in that, where he's telling Picard, he's like, don't let them promote you, don't let them move you, stay on that ship, that's where you belong. Obviously Picard didn't listen either, but we tried.
Well, I mean, let's not even think about that.
No, that's not canon in my head, so fine.
No, neither.
So
that's Elseworlds.
Elseworlds, yes. There are some things I like about those shows, but not very much. And they do feel like a different universe to me.
Completely.
I'm being very diplomatic today.
So
fair enough. No, I don't know. Just in one of those moods. I'm talking about a good movie here, having good times.
Yes.
So, a good movie. I think it's good overall. Yes.
One thing I did notice.
What's that?
So I've never seen this movie on a big telly on the telly that I have at the moment, because I haven't seen this movie.
You
for
see
years.
A lot of things that you don't notice.
The makeup, they do not cover up well.
No.
On a HD, you can see every pockmark, every scar. Like Leonard Nimoy looks like he's been through some sort of war or something.
Yeah, he's not looking great, is he?
And I guess it's just a combination of HD and like 70s filming and makeup, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah,
because he never looks that. Because Wrath of Khan, they don't look. I mean, they're older in that, and they don't look anywhere near as bad.
I think in Wrath of Khan, they really just because it's part of the story, I think they really just accepted their age and played it at their age. Whereas this one, they're kind of trying to hold on to the way they were and trying to hold on to their old looks, and it doesn't quite work. I personally really wished.
From what I remember, it's only supposed to be set 5 years after the last
it is
Trek
not.
episode.
Like, it clearly is not. When you come back, come back to these characters. If you watched like the last episode of season 3 and then immediately watch this, you'd be like, "That's not 5 years. That's long." But anyway, we're introduced to Kirk, who has been promoted as Admiral and Chief of Starfleet Operations, and Starfleet Command has assigned the Enterprise to intercept the Cloud, as it's the only ship within range, which just always seems to happen. The Enterprise is the only ship within range.
I always wondered about that.
I assume
I never
it seems weird because I'm like, you're at Earth and there's the Mars space docks. I'm like, really, there's no other ship? But I guess they mean you're the only ship that's powerful enough within range. So we've got other ships around, but even though you haven't had your shakedown, you are by far the most powerful ship in this sector, so we're going to send you. Or maybe, just maybe, Kirk's the reason that the Enterprise is being sent there.
I think that's
the reason.
Gotta be part of it, hasn't
I would
it?
imagine so.
He's clearly seen an opportunity here, and he takes it.
And that's something we will come to now, because Kirk in this movie is an asshole to begin with.
Yeah,
he's a total asshole.
Well, you get the little meeting with the new science officer.
Yes,
the new Vulcan.
The poor Vulcan.
And
science officer.
have we missed the? I think we've missed a bit. We've missed the Spock bit.
I thought that came after this shot, after this scene. But,
I thought we were reintroduced to Spock as straight away after. Well, yeah, in my copy anyway.
You may be
it's
right.
Spock first, and then Kirk.
You may well be right. Okay, well, yes.
But so we'll carry on with the Kirk bit.
And we'll come back to Spock in a moment. Yeah, okay. So he's meeting his poor, soon-to-be very unfortunate new science officer.
I love the way he's like, he has the whole sort of like, the ship will be ready. No, it's going to be ready it needs to be ready in like an hour.
12 hours or something, isn't it? It's like, now.
Yeah, it's like, but I'm supposed to be doing this, and this is like, you can do that on board the ship. It's like, okay.
And
I think it's a good job he's a Vulcan, because even as a Vulcan, you can see that he's like, what the fuck has just happened?
It's funny. It's interesting as well that obviously Spock was a big part of Kirk's life and career, a good friend of Kirk's, and Spock's unavailable. But Kirk has seen fit to find a Vulcan science officer and ask for him personally to take on this role. So he's obviously like, I need a Vulcan on the bridge. That's what I do. They're always good. They've been good to me. So
I mean, this actually goes to the Phase 2 stuff. So you know about the Phase 2 stuff. So there was supposed to be a show in the 70s.
Well, that's what this was, right? Because this was meant to be Phase 2. Then they cancelled it. So, but I think they started with a movie, then a series, then went back to being a movie at the last minute.
Well, they were supposed to be doing a series. So they got scripts sorted. They had the crew sorted. So I think because Alia and Decker were supposed to be in that series. Leonard Nimoy wasn't going to come back because of money dispute.
Yes.
So they'd sold his likeness without him knowing to Heineken over here in the UK to show for adverts, and he had no idea about that until later. And also, he didn't receive his money for royalties. So he wasn't coming back for Phase 2, which is why they got this. They were gonna. They decided, well, we still need a Vulcan.
A Vulcan, yeah.
So they made this character called Zon, who was going to be replacing Spock. Who in this, he's actually in this. He's not Zon, but he's playing one of the other characters.
Ah, that's cool.
He's a human. Yeah, he's.
I guess they had the cast at that point, so they're like, well, you could just be in this movie,
I'm gonna butcher this, I'm afraid. David Gutierrez.
Right.
It's so he plays Commander Branch in this, and basically what they did when they decided, after I think Star Wars came out, they saw how like much money it made, and they were like, oh, people want to see space movies now. They just then decided, right, we're going to do a movie instead of the series. So they cancelled the plans for the series and started this. And then somebody, I can't remember who it was, somebody said, look, we really need Spock in this. We really need to get.
I mean, he is like, you need the three, right? You could probably lose some of the others, but you definitely definitely cannot do Star Trek original series without Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. That's like not gonna happen.
Exactly. So they basically like got in contact with him and said, look, we'd like you to come back.
Yeah.
They gave him a check for his royalties and stuff, and he said he'd come back, but only if he had approval of the script.
Yes.
Which is what they basically gave him. So he came back, which is thank fuck he did.
Oh god, he's amazing.
I'd you know, as one of those sort of like leap sort of things, if I'd love to go to the universe where Phase 2 happened.
Yes. Because have you watched Is it Star Trek Continues? That's a really good show.
I've seen bits of. I haven't seen.
It's really good.
It's one of those things that I've never got around to getting all the way through.
I'm pretty sure it's all on YouTube. It's really good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But I think a lot of those scripts then went on to be in Next Gen.
Yes, they did.
You can tell that.
You can tell the episodes in season 1 where it's like, this feels like it's probably,
this is definitely, yeah.
And
Troy and Riker are Decker and Alia.
For sure. For sure. And I've said a lot a few times that I always felt like season 1, it feels like they had Riker there to be the next Kirk if they needed to get rid of the bold guy. It kind of feels that way. But yeah, he is very Decker and she's very Alia. You're right, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Especially in season 1, and then they become their own characters later. In the same way, actually, because Riker is the hotshot up and comer, and Picard is the older, wiser captain. But let's go over to Spock, who is on Vulcan, and he's finishing the Kolinar, which is the Vulcan. It's a Vulcan ritual to purge all emotion. Excuse me. So to purge all emotion, and basically, it's a rite of passage for Vulcans, isn't it? Once they've done this, it's like you are a true Vulcan now. He basically didn't do this because he joined Starfleet instead. Yes, so he's put it off until this point, but now he's left Starfleet, and he's going to go through the Kolinar and be with his people. But he doesn't complete the Kolinar because he senses something.
Yeah, he's literally like at the final stage of the ritual.
They're about to give him his medal.
He senses the sort of presence in the universe, and the high, I don't think she's not high priestess, Kolinar master. Basically, reads his, asks to read his thoughts, and he, and she sees that there's this presence, and he sees he's not ready, and I think she even says like Jim's name. So
I think he's
got stuff that's holding him back, and so he, and that's it. He basically says no, he's gonna
go
not do this, and
gonna go and get my hair cut,
what this is,
and head off to help the crew. But so then in the meantime, we discover that the Enterprise's transporters are down. So it's necessary to take a 20-minute ship around to look at the Enterprise.
I wrote in my notes 10 minutes of ship porn.
Oh, and it is. And I do still love it.
I didn't time it.
It's a long time.
It feels like 10 minutes of ship porn.
It's a good 5 to 10 minutes. And it feels like...
As a kid, I literally went, why the fuck are we doing this? Why are we driving around this car, the ship?
Do you know,
like this is so boring. Now it's like, oh, it's awesome. God, look at that.
I know. It's my favourite Enterprise design of all time. The refit,
hands down,
is my favourite.
I prefer the interior of the next movie.
Well, the interior changed every movie. I'm actually really partial to the Undiscovered Country interior, actually, myself. But it because they tore down the bridge every movie, right? That was kind of the running
Pretty
joke.
much.
They thought there wasn't going to be another one. They tore the bridge
Yeah.
down. They rebuilt the bridge. But in terms of the visual design, outside design, the outer design of the ship, my absolute favorite ship, hands
Absolutely
down.
stunning. I think there's a few differences in the under dome. I think that were changed later on as well.
Yes.
But nothing much.
That's quite normal. Like the Sovereign class changed between movies as well, very subtly, but it does change throughout. But the silhouette and most of it is pretty much the same. And it is my favorite design.
Yeah,
but
I absolutely adore that ship. It's so
gorgeous.
beautiful.
But this is so unnecessary, and it does go
It
on
really is.
far too long. And do you know what? The funniest bit is like it plays a score, and then the score almost stops, and you're like, okay, that's that. And then it starts again, and it's like, oh, okay. And then we get the front shot, and
you also think because it goes over the sort of it goes pretty much all the way. The pod goes pretty much all the way around the ship, and when the score starts going down, they're just passing the they're passing the back the shuttle
which
bay
you think
doors,
this is it.
Oh, they're going to go into the shuttle the shuttle bay. No, they're not. They're coming on round the other side.
And the thing is, the thing that I think, obviously a lot of people don't like 2001. I can see why. But one thing that Kubrick did with 2001, I think, is he made a space movie. He made a movie of like, what would it be like to actually be in space? So you see these things taking forever in that movie, and that's because it's very realistic. It's like, this is how things would go in space. This is not realistic. This is just like, we're going to fly around the ship for no reason, just to be like, look at our ship.
I mean, you get the impression it's Scotty
showing off.
Kirk showing Kirk that how the refit looks.
But they do have quite an urgent mission to attend to.
Isn't it? Yeah. We really need to get to the other side of the galaxy. But I'm going to actually show you all the exhaust ports and the new doors and everything on the ship.
He says to the new science officer, he's like, no, the ship needs to be ready in 12 hours because I need another 12 hours to fly around and look at it.
Yeah.
But it's a wonderful design, and like I said, now, and again, you said, at my age now, I'm like, oh, look at that design.
Spacesuits flying around as well. It's like, what's that guy doing? Why is he just floating around?
At least here, it's a little more understandable. They're refitting a ship. I think there are some panels. There's like a panel down, and they're doing some stuff. So fair enough. People outside here make sense. People outside with the alien death cloud coming does not make so much sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, eventually, Kirk does get on board, and we're introduced to Deckard.
Well, we get the first of all.
We get the chaos on the bridge first, don't we? Of course.
So he goes into the bridge, and I love that. That is a great shot of them all like running around like headless chickens,
mental.
Trying to sort of put this bridge together. And I love you get like things like there's like a little floating platform.
Yeah.
That someone stood on to fix the ceiling, and little things like that are really, really great. Oh, one thing we haven't mentioned: the fucking uniforms in this movie.
Oh God!
My God, are these uniforms horrible?
Some are passable. Some are they range from just about passable to absolutely horrible. That's like
it's just and. I think Kirk wears about 3 different things in this bloody
and the
movie
first thing he wears is the best. It goes downhill. The first one he wears, I'm like, that's probably the best outfit he's got.
Yeah, then he ends up with this sort of white vest thing. It's like, what the fuck is that? Why is he wearing now? It's awful. The terrible. And there's everything is like really dull blue or beige. It's so boring. It's horrible.
Yeah,
there's
it's
no colour in this thing.
And again. For me, Wrath of Khan, my favourite uniform as well. I love that uniform.
It's my favourite Star Trek. And the thing is Roddenberry hated those.
I know he did because they're too military. I understand that, but I just love that naval look, and I think it really works. I love it. I always loved it in Next Gen when you had like episodes with someone that's time traveled, or episodes where like this ship's been stuck in the past or in an alternate dimension. They come through and you see those old uniforms. I was like, yes, it's the uniforms. I love those uniforms.
Same here. They're completely my favourite uniforms. They're brilliant. Those.
I mean, I'm sure they're not very comfortable to wear. They look very warm. But
no, apparently I think that's one of the things that. So one of the things with this uniform, it was still tight and stuff. And apparently, I didn't notice, but apparently, if you look, you can see Shatner's corset.
Oh no!
Through it in some shots. Apparently,
the girdle's
I
on
didn't
show.
notice it, but apparently you can. And I think they all sort of like were like sick of like holding their stomachs in and things.
I'm sure they were.
Whereas with the uniforms in the second movie onwards, they were, I think, looser and more.
Sure.
Because they were like shirt, and vest and jacket. So they're a lot easier to wear. They hide, I think, more sins.
Yeah.
Than this uniform does.
So yes, we see the chaos on the bridge.
And they're all happy to see Kirk.
Of course, and like an ensign on the bridge complains about Kirk being there, and then Uhura's like, our chances of surviving have just like quadrupled or whatever.
And then you get the light. They're talking about. He says about Decker, and I love the fact that Sulu says he doesn't know yet, and you can just tell nobody on that ship wants to do that fucking job. They're all like, "Yeah, we haven't told him. That's your job. We're happy to have you back, but we're not fucking telling him." I ain't
saying anything. Yeah, and of course we discover that Decker is in engineering. He knows the ship inside and out. He's overseen the whole refit. And he's a very hands-on captain.
And as you find out, he got this job basically from Kirk.
Kirk gave it to him personally.
This job.
And we discover that now because Kirk says, I am taking command. Because of the mission, I've got greater experience out there dealing with this kind of thing. I know what I'm doing, so I'm taking command. And he says, well, you don't know how this ship works. Like, this is not, and it is one of those weird things when you look at the schematics, not to get too nerdy, but when you look at the schematics, is it really a refit or is it a whole new ship? Because there's barely anything original.
I'm about 10 steps away from my copy of Mr. Scott's Guide to the Enterprise.
I've got mine over there somewhere.
There's a lot of fucking difference.
Yeah, there's a hell of a lot. Yeah, it's huge.
And I've always thought it was really odd that, like, the idea that the basic frame is still the same basic frame from the 5-year missions.
It doesn't matter at all.
Because you think, well, also, I think, if I'm remembering rightly, theoretically, the Enterprise has been on, before Kirk, has already been on at least 2 5-year missions?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
I
believe the one with Pike came to an end.
It escapes me now.
Yeah,
but it's been on a few. It's been by this point at least 20 years.
Yeah, it's an older ship. Yeah. So he says,
So I think.
Go on.
Sorry, no, you hear him.
No, I was going to continue. So yeah, finish your point.
I was just going to say, just the idea that this is still the same ship with just like new plates on it is a bit weird.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know how long we keep sort of naval ships around. I suppose they are around for quite a while if they get refitted and stuff. And this is one hell of a refit. This is like practically
new. That's what I mean.
New.
Not to this. Not to this like almost complete structural.
Yeah, I mean
movement and.
It doesn't even match up. Like, if you put the two side to side, you're like, it can't be the same. What is even the same? I don't even know what's the same. But either way, whatever. He says, you don't know this. This is an extensive refit. I know the ship better than you ever will. Like, I know this ship, 100 times more than you do. And Kirk...
this is another thing. This is another thing about the difference between, like, being an adult and being a kid. And when I was a kid, it was literally like, who is this prick?
Fuck off, Decker.
Why is he talking to Kirk like this? Fuck you, kid. I hate you. Now it's like, yeah, Kirk's a dickhead.
You're a dick.
For this shit.
He's a dick for most of this movie.
He's being an asshole.
Yeah, he's a dick for most of the movie.
Decker's like, you completely sympathise with Decker now. It's like,
yeah,
no, he's 100%.
Right. There's a great line later as well.
And
which I
love Scotty's face as well. Scotty's face in the scene is like, you can just see him. He's just stood there like behind them, and his eyes are basically just darting from each one of them.
Well, Scotty's probably just like, please Kirk, don't let slip that all of us already knew. just you know, please. I'm going to pretend to be shocked. So he says, look, you know, I'm the expert on this ship, and you know, Kirk's like, I don't care, I have better experience, you're going to stay on board, you're going to be temporarily demoted to commander, and you're going to be basically my first officer. He's pissed off with that, but then tragedy strikes as testing the new.
They were fixing something on that console, which I think it was to do with the connected to the
somehow connected
transporters, didn't it? Yeah.
And we get this wonderfully, I've always found this scene really disturbing. And it's, for me, it is a perfect example of, you know, insinuate and don't show everything. Because what we hear about rather than seeing is just awful. And you do see a little bit, but not enough. Not much.
You get a vague outline that is humanoid shaped, but is not right.
Yes, because
you get that scream.
Poor Vulcan science officer is and someone else, other officer is killed in a transporter malfunction, and we see them. It's going horribly wrong. Scotty does what he can. They briefly start to materialize, and Scotty's like, "Oh my god, they're materializing! Send it away!" And
he's like, "Boost!" Like he's saying, you know,
boost it, send them back. They send them back, and we get the message back from Starfleet saying, you know, what arrived here didn't live long. Luckily, or fortunately,
thankfully, fortunately, it's like also you get well, I imagine she's commander.
She must have been promoted.
Rand, you get Janice Rand, who I love. Janice Rand. It's like she's only in the first season of the original Trek, but
it's nice that they included a lot of these characters, though.
Yeah,
you know, like in a minute. In a minute, Bones talks about Chapel and a few other. You know, we hear about these people and we see that they're
she's
doing
Dr. Chapel in this.
Yes, which is great. Again, it's great. It's great that all of these characters have moved on. And because you know, I guess there's always that that kind of thing where they'll just focus on the main cast, but they really didn't here. They really do treat it like, let's catch up with everyone. Let's see what everyone's doing now. So yes. The transporters
basically Deco basically gets told that he not only is he like demoted to second in command, he also has to double as science officer.
Yes,
now.
Because of Sonak's death, Decker is now pulling double duty. He's also science officer, as well as first officer, because Decker says, "Well, no one knows anything now," and he's like, "Well, you do, Decker. You're the expert, so you're staying, and you're now being my science officer as well." Now I've always found this hilarious because not moments after this scene with this horrific transporter accident, we get complaints from an officer who's refusing to beam aboard, and Kirk is just like, "Oh, it's Bones. He's just being a pussy. Just fucking beam him up. Forcibly beam this twat up." And it's like,
I'll go and
dude.
Deal with him.
And he kind of acts like he kind of treats Bones as if he's being superstitious and stupid. But it's like, not 2 minutes ago, someone got turned inside out. Like, what are you talking about, mate? Like,
completely.
There's two people that have come through on the transporter. Already, and they're like, "Well, he insisted we come through to see what happens to us," and I was like, "Damn right, I don't blame him. You go first if you insist."
Bones has always been a bit iffy about the transporter anyway.
And this wouldn't have done anything series. Because presumably it's only a few minutes, and if it's the same transporter room, they're probably scooping the bloody last people off the pad when he got
just
there,
mopping them off the floor. Yeah,
just I'll step over here. Don't worry.
Never mind about the puddle over there. That used to be a Vulcan science officer. That's fine.
Can I say that I really wish that McCoy just stayed looking like this for the whole bloody movie, because he looks so awesome.
To keep the beard. The beard is fucking awesome.
It's so good.
And that 70s medallion. That is one thing I forgot to say.
He's
about
the most 70s man on the ship.
It's so 70s.
It is.
This film.
He looks like he's been hanging out in like a hippie commune for like a year.
You can just see him sort of like lounging on a bar somewhere.
Yeah, he's found marijuana and he's just like, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's just
And I love the fact that he's really pissed off because basically Kirk forced them to like.
Well, he comes clean, doesn't he? Because at first, Bones is like, says, they used this bloody clause. They brought me back here, and Kirk's like,
Admiral Nagata.
Yeah,
like forced me into using this clause that no one's used in like years, and it's like, yeah, well, I kind of did that. And you think you prick.
But yes, you prick. But then I do think it is quite a nice scene when Kirk's like, I need you. Like I need you. I need you, and you can see that Bones is like, okay, you're one of my closest friends. For you,
exactly it is. And
I will do this.
It's almost, of course you need me.
Yeah. And then what does he say? He's like, I bet they turned the sick bay into a. What does he say? It's like, I bet they turned into a computer terminal or something like that.
Yeah.
He's like, I know engineers. They always love to change things.
Yes, I love that. Engineers love to change things. I think that's brilliant.
And clearly a dig at Scotty, I'm assuming.
Yeah, completely.
But yeah, so now we've got most of the crew, and we're now gonna be going underway. And Kirk says, we need to go to warp because. Oh no, actually, sorry, we get the briefing. Yeah. We get the briefing where he shows everyone what's going on. He's like, look, this is the situation, and then we see the Epsilon 9 fell to the cloud, and we see the last transmission of Epsilon 9. Kirk says, look, this is why I'm taking command. This is what we're going to do. We need to stop this cloud from reaching Earth. And to do that, we need warp.
you get a full on a crew briefing as well. That's like almost the entire crew sort of there, and there are some sort of strange odd things. Did you notice the two people in full Indian Native American regalia, like dress?
I did not.
there were two. There's a man and a woman that are in
the
full,
briefing,
like feathers. Yeah. They're sort of like in the crowd. They've got full. Like not massive like war bonnet sort of thing.
No.
But they've got like feathers in their like braided hair, and you can see like jewelry and stuff, like Indian jewelry and things like that. It's like, wow, that's
the
weird.
Wonders of Blu-ray, eh?
Yeah. And apparently a lot of those the people that are in that scene, they were part of the campaign that got the writing campaign that got Star Trek its third season. Yeah,
that's nice. That's
really
nice.
I like that as well. That's really cool.
So then we need to get there. We need warp drive, and Scotty, and the rest of the crew are like, that's probably not a good idea, Kirk. But he's like, no,
the intermix yet. And...
but he's like, no, we need to do it. And to be fair, like, there's no other way they're going to get there. So it's like, well, we're going to have to take the risk. So.
Use impulse all the way to it. No,
and he is cautious. He does say Sulu warp 1. He could have been like maximum warp. Let's just do or die. But he's like, no, warp 1 and
fuck it, 9.9.
yeah, just max it out.
I really want to test these engines.
Yeah, but something goes horribly wrong, and we get probably the worst scene in the film, in my opinion. Visually stunning, but
we've forgotten the introduction of Ilea.
Oh my god, Ilea. This introduction, honestly, she comes across like a bitch. I understand, because her species are telepathic, right? So she's picked up on the room. She's read the room upon entering.
Sure telepathic. What her species? They have got this. They release pheromones.
Yes.
That they basically turn on like anybody around them like ridiculously, and apparently if anybody who hadn't been around them enough, I think so. I've read somewhere like
Chekhov and Sulu are like immediately like like school kids.
Chekhov
like
smile when they walk through.
It's so creepy.
It's ridiculous. And apparently anybody who had sex with them would probably not survive it unless you've been through some sort of thing, which apparently Decker has had,
because they've had a previous relationship.
You find out that he was stationed on that her home planet and they had a relationship, and he basically fucked off and left her.
Yes,
so you can understand why she's a bit.
But it's just funny because like she enters the bridge and we're introduced to her. And Decker, she says hi to Decker, and then Kirk, says, welcome aboard, and she just immediately says nothing else. She just looks at him and goes, "My vow of celibacy is on record, Captain." Like, whoa,
yeah,
Jesus, it's a bit rude. Like, and it's like it almost feels like that line would have worked way better, because I don't get that vibe from Kirk at all in that scene, and I think that line would have been better served if she kind of looked over it like Chekhov and Sulu, just like, my vow of celibacy is on record.
Apparently there's one of the bits where Sulu gets up from the console. He gets up awkwardly, and apparently it's because he's supposed to have a boner.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. Oh dear.
Yeah, so she basically, she's the navigation officer. She takes
her station, and then we go to warp 1, and we have issues. The ship has a malfunction and ends up in a wormhole.
Yeah, due to the basically the intermix, it produces a wormhole, and throws them into this wormhole, and also brings this like meteor in with them.
Yes, or sucks in this meteor or asteroid on the way.
Asteroid, whatever.
And
this is another one of those scenes where it's like, this scene is going on too long.
I think it's awful. I think this is visually stunning, but I think it's the worst scene of the film, in my opinion.
The whole what annoys me about this scene as well is even the dialogue is too long.
Yeah,
it's like there's a sense of urgency here, and it's literally like, load the torpedo. Torpedo is loaded.
Yeah.
Fire torpedo.
It's
torpedo is away. It's like, just fucking fire the torpedo.
It's a very impressive visual effects for the time. And I think they were just like, we really want to show this off. And it just goes on and on and on. It's a very important scene. It's a very important scene in the narrative, because it shows that Kirk doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And he's got really no business captaining the ship.
He says fire phasers. He says fire phasers. And Deckard immediately says, no, do not. Belay that order. Do not fire phasers. Load torpedoes, fire torpedoes.
Yeah. And of course he does. They check off fires.
Another one of those things is you think, how does that work? They're already traveling at warp in a wormhole. How do they fire the torpedo? I mean, but anyway, that's one of those issues that we don't need to discuss, really.
No, but it is interesting. There are some pretty big inconsistencies in this film. So they fire and it solves the problem. They manage to come out of warp and then they stabilize it, and they're fine. And Kirk demands that Decker and he meet. And Bones says, "I'm going to come too."
I'm going to come too.
And they have the meeting.
Do you know what? One thing I will say. So about the characterization in this, they're all a bit off.
I like it, for the record. I actually think
Bones is the only one that feels like Bone, like he should. Almost everybody else just feels slightly off. I will say this. I think this is one of Shatner's best performances.
Definitely, I think he was clearly very invested in this film. Personally, I actually really like. I really like it in this film, because it kind of feels to me that they all start from a broken position, and they're all kind of not themselves. Away, but then by the end, they are those people again, And it's really evident with Spock, but also with Kirk, because like I said, Kirk is an asshole for half the movie, really at least half the movie. So he calls the meeting with Decker. And he says, Decker, what the hell were you doing countermanding my orders? And as you said, Decker says, look, the phasers draw power from the engines. So if you'd done that, you would have made the situation even worse. You would have destroyed the ship. So I told them to shoot torpedoes, which come from a separate system. And Kirk says, okay, then you did the right thing. And I love this line, because Kirk says, Decker, you saved the ship. And Decker's just like, Captain, I'm aware of that. It's like, yeah, I fucking did.
Absolutely.
You're damn right I bloody did, because I know what I'm doing. And then we get another wonderful line where Kirk says, Decker, stop competing with me. Decker leaves, and then Bones says, Jim, you're the one that's competing. It's you. It's not him. It's you. And again, as a kid, I was just, Decker's such a dick. But now as an adult, you're like, no, exactly. You're right. Kirk's being an absolute twat here. So yes, so they've had their first argument, or second argument, I guess, at this point. But then we're told that ship is...
Also, what we should point out, one thing we haven't said is Decker is the son of Commodore Matt Decker from the Doomsday Machine episode.
Yes.
Which I think is... I love that.
Touch.
That's awesome that they got a character's son from the original series.
Yeah. And doesn't use it in such a way that you can watch the movie without having watched it, and it doesn't matter, Yeah,
it doesn't matter at all. It's just nice.
It's a nice touch. Yeah, it's a nice touch. So we're then told though that a ship is coming to dock with Enterprise, and they all wonder who it is, but they're like, it must be some kind of important dignitary or someone it's coming along. So Kirk allows it, and we get the arrival of Spock, who, despite having failed the Kolinar, all but finished. So when he arrives, we get the wonderful scene with Chekhov, who's like, Mr. Spock, like, it's so nice to see you, and Spock's just like completely emotionless. He's like, I'm going to the bridge. Like, where's Kirk?
Because I get he's just spent I don't know how long, possibly years on Vulcan, like not speaking to humans and not being around humans,
and trying actively to purge himself of emotion. That was the reason he was there for the Kolinar, is to purge all emotions. So even though he failed by human standards, he's emotionless at this point, because he's gone so far through that training. So Spock arrives and heads to the bridge, where we get this scene where the crew are all happy to see him, and Spock just no sells it. Even McCoy is happy to see him, and he says so, and we get Uhura. Uhura's like, oh, it's just how we feel, Mr. Spock, and Spock completely ignores her and just starts talking to Jim.
Isn't this also? I think it's the first appearance of Dr. Chapel as well, isn't it? I think she comes.
It may
in
well
with
be actually.
McCoy,
Yes.
Which so that's cool as well. And they're all sort of, because I think Dr. Chapel definitely had a thing for Spock.
Oh yes.
You see that in there are episodes where she clearly loves Spock.
Yeah. Her and Dax. Both big Spock fans. So yes, Spock's now aboard, and I guess this is one thing that Decker's happy to give up, because Spock's like, "Can I take the science station?" Decker's like, "Fine."
It's like it still feels like another demotion though, because Spock's going to be his first officer.
Yes, that's I thought he was just taking science station. I didn't. Well, think
I think so, but I mean, he's got way more experience than you would have thought he was probably. So I get the impression this is like a second demotion for the poor fucker.
So basically, Spock fixes everything on the ship, but just like within minutes of being there, he's like, "I'll go."
He's been listening to their problems, and he's on the way over, and he knows exactly how to fix it. So he goes down and super Spock fixes everything.
Yeah, pretty much. So they head off, and they.
I do love that like medieval jacket he's wearing as well. That's really cool.
Yes.
I wish he would have kept that on.
Yeah, it's much better than the wizard robes that he's got on Vulcan, which look awful. But yeah, so the Enterprise catches up with the energy cloud, but it gets attacked, and we get the scene with the probe on the bridge.
Spock's says he's getting confusion from them, and he's like that. He says he sent a message and it doesn't know why we haven't replied.
Yes.
And of course they're all like, well, no, we haven't received any messages.
And we haven't sent any messages. On? Yeah.
Nothing. No messages has been received from it. So Spock's basically going through all the signals to try and find a message, and eventually he finds that it's a radio signal. It's sending a radio signal, and no one, they haven't had a radio signal sort of for centuries, I presume.
Yes,
at this point,
presumably.
they haven't used old radio signals, so it's basically gonna destroy the ship, and there's the shields protect them, but seriously fuck up the systems, while Spock is desperately trying to decode the signal and send a response.
Yeah.
And, a second, I don't know, plasma ball or whatever the hell it is that it's firing at them is on its way, and Kirk says to, Scotty, look, we need shields back. It's like, there's no way the shields are going to take another hit like that. If this thing hits us, we're fucked.
This is completely beyond us.
Yeah, and then obviously nick of time, Spock sends a reply, and the plasma bolt or whatever it is immediately sort of disappears, and they're sort of saved.
But it has is injured,
and that's when you get the probe comes. Oh yeah,
Chekhov's been injured, right?
And
then we get Chapel come back. Dr. Chapel comes to heal his wounds, but Lilia's there, and she says, "Don't worry, I can stop the pain." And because we get some wonderful overacting by Chekhov's overacting is amazing. So she does something and stops the pain, and he's like, "Oh, thank you so much," And then Chapel comes in, but then, as you said, then the probe appears on the bridge. And it attacks Spock, doesn't it? And then it abducts.
No,
Lilia.
it's first. So it's going through the database.
Oh, that's right. And then they try to interfere.
Yes. And Spock basically says, "Look, we can't let it have all this information on us." Yeah. So he destroys the console, and then it
gets annoyed.
Zaps Spock. Yeah, it zaps Spock. Turns around and it basically
digitizes Leia as it did the Warbird. The Katinga.
And apparently, the actress, what is her name?
She's a model, isn't she? An Indian model?
Princess Chambata. She was Miss India.
Yeah.
She actually went temporarily blind.
Jesus.
During that scene. The light was so intense, and she had to keep her eyes open, and she went. She
did a lot
blind.
for this role, didn't she? She had to shave her head.
She had to shave her head. Apparently, she was really upset. She cried when they shaved her head.
I'm not surprised.
And the thing, and what I do like though is that apparently they insured her just in case her hair didn't grow back, and luckily it did. But I think that was why she agreed to do it, because they insured her. But yeah, she gets, because like I said, she was already contracted for Phase 2. She had a 5-year contract.
Yes. Yeah.
So the people that were involved with Phase 2 had their contracts sorted. They were all ready to go for 5 years.
Yeah. But yeah, so Leia is taken, and Decker, what does Decker say? He's like, you wanted to know what I thought was an unacceptable risk. This is unacceptable risk.
Yeah,
and Kirk goes to argue with Decker, and he's like, "You're absolutely right," and he just shuts up. He's like, "Okay, you're right.
Yeah,
my bad." And this is where we start to see Kirk become more like Kirk. He's starting to realize, I am out of my depth. I need Decker's help. And he's starting to turn now. We're starting to see old Kirk a bit more. He's still very sort of angry, I guess, or bitter, but he's starting to become more like Kirk.
He's so desperate to prove that he can still do this job.
He can still go.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's been sat around for a couple of years doing paperwork.
Yeah,
and he just wants to prove that he can do this job. He wants to be out here. He doesn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah. But it's not long before a signal is found. I think it comes from Leia's quarters, doesn't it? And they head there and discover that I don't know why she's in the shower, but for some reason they've sent back a robotic replica of Leah in the shower, and she appears, puts some clothes on, and then identifies, basically says that she's been sent by V'ger to study the carbon-based life forms on the ship.
The infestation, as you said.
The infestation. Because V'ger doesn't understand why Enterprise has this infection of carbon-based life forms on board. V'ger doesn't understand
it doesn't see Enterprise as a ship; it sees it as an entity itself.
Yeah, as not necessarily an equal, but as an entity. Yeah. And it sees the carbon life forms as an infection. They say, if you're going to be amongst us, fine. We need to scan you. We need to study you. And she says, the robot says, absolutely not. You can't do that. And he says, I think it's Bones, says, part of being human is basically having this scan, and she's like, okay, then fine. It's like easily swayed.
You also see that she has an emotional response to Decker.
Yes, immediately. So there's a moment.
Even though she's a computer recreation of Alia, she still has Alia's thoughts in there.
As we discover in McCoy's scan. Subsequent scan, it is revealed that this is like not just a robot. This is like the most technically advanced replica ever. It's basically a Cylon, like in terms of it's like almost indistinguishable from the real thing, or at least every tiniest thing. They're even like like eye moisture. I think they even mentioned at one point. They're like everything. She's like the perfect copy. Of course, Decker is absolutely heartbroken over the loss of Leah, but is asked by Kirk to basically speak to her. He's like, well, she seems to have some kind of attachment to you, some kind of response to you. Maybe we can use that to our advantage. So he gets this heartbroken Decker to spend time with the robot, the Leah, and he does manage to get information from her.
I do love the fact that she's had enough of being poked at by Dr. McCoy, and she walks through the wall or the door or the door. Or
I think it's a wall. She just walks straight through a bulkhead, like, bye, done.
Yeah, I'm done now.
But I love all of this. It just shows that this is technology so far beyond what Starfleet has. There's no way they're going to stop this thing doing whatever it wants at this point. It's beyond them.
Yeah.
There's no chance of them, as we've seen from the Klingons initially, but now we're sure there is no way they're shooting their way out of this. There's no way Kirk is going to fight robot Lilia on Vasquez rocks and this will all go away. It's not going to happen this time. They need to think their way out of this. So he manages to get some information from the robot Lilia, because she has this connection to him, and it kind of shows that those feelings and the memories are all still inside the Leah clone.
Yeah, they put like a sort of this headband thing on her, and they show her like stuff that she used to wear and things like that.
A game that they used to play.
So she basically, it shows that that she is in there, sort of thing.
Yes, she's been recreated so perfectly that she actually has emotion and everything. It's all there, suppressed, but it's there. Meanwhile, Spock decides to do what everyone else seems to do in every outside shot of this film, as you pointed out, and he gets in a spacesuit and goes out into space.
Suits up and goes out, and that's a weird thing as well, when he's on the jet, he's got the jetpack sort of thing, and the computer tells him how it works, and it's like, surely you don't need that. You just he would have training on it, and it would
maybe it's like a safety thing. It's like everyone does this patronizing like, I don't know. But it's kind of funny. But anyways, Spock heads into the interior
one thing I will say about the entrance to that part, it's a very unfortunate looking thing.
Yes.
It does look like a bum hole. It really
it does.
A very glowy bum hole, but it does look like a bum hole.
Yes. It's called a number of things in the movie. I think it's first called an aperture.
It's an aperture.
But then doesn't Spock say...
It's sort of opening and closing, isn't it? And there's like a little
I think
Spock
Spock calls it an orifice, which doesn't help matters.
Yeah, that really doesn't help.
But anyway, he heads in and he tries to mind meld with telepathically.
You've got to say, you get that long shot of him
beautiful
going through
shot.
all the model work is
it's insane. And one thing,
stunning.
It's one thing I really love with this movie is the sense of scale is amazing in this film.
Yeah.
The scale of V'ger versus obviously versus Spock, but also versus the Enterprise when the Enterprise is pulled in. That sense of scale is fantastic.
And he's you get that amazing shot of all those planets.
Yes.
And that I'm not sure what it is. That thing in the middle that looks like an eye.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and he's like works out that this is all it's seen and it's recreated or everything that it's
digitized.
It's encountered.
Yeah, there's a couple of Katungan class warships over there. What the hell?
Yeah, and you see like the
it's almost like a universe within it. It's like recreating everything. That's why it's expanding. It's got all of the things it's digitized and they're all in here, or at least that's how I took it. Like it's just kind of ever expanding.
That's how I've taken it as well.
Yeah, it's ever expanding as it gets more stuff. Like eventually, Earth will be in here. Like everything will be in here.
It'll just be one massive fucking archive of the universe.
Yes, an archive of the universe. Yeah, absolutely. So Spock attempts to mind meld with V'ger telepathically, and basically learns at this point that V'ger is a non-biological but living organism, and it basically is too much for him to handle.
Well, I think he also mentions that there's a recreation of what he thinks the planet that this thing came from. It has a sort of a wherever it came from. It was like a race of robots, basically, that this thing came from. Yeah. At this point, anyway.
Yes. Yeah. He can kind of see that through the mind meld, and of course. He's returned to the ship, unconscious, I think, at this point.
Kirk goes out, and depending on the version you've got, you get Kirk suiting up.
Yes,
or you don't get Kirk suiting up.
But of course,
so Kirk goes out and retrieves it.
Kirk is safe because he's not capable of mind melding, so he doesn't even try it. Brings Spock back, and now we get Spock. Spock is Spock again. He's now due to mind melding with V'ger. He seems to have gotten his emotions back. They all kind of come back in a big flurry, and he's kind of laughing at first, isn't he? On the bed and stuff, which I always loved. I always loved that with Nimoy's performances. He's so good at being Spock, but those wonderful scenes where he lets out his human side for a moment. Like I always loved the scene. When he thinks that Kirk's dead in the original series.
A mock time.
Yes. And then
a mock time. The end of a mock time when Kirk...
Jim! And he's just really happy, and then he kind of realises what he's done, and he kind of composes himself again, and he's like, oh God, so embarrassing. But yeah, so now we have Spock back, basically. It's kind of undone all of the Kolonor now. He's kind of back to being Spock that we know. And effectively, at this point on, the last kind of, I guess, 15 minutes of the movie, 20, 15 minutes of the movie, it's the crew are back. They're kind of back to being themselves again. And so Spock basically relays everything he's learnt, and they send the ship in. The ship gets tractored, doesn't it, and pulled in.
Yeah, it gets tractored in. It's pulled in.
And we get the scene of Spock weeping on the ship, on the bridge.
Yeah, because it's basically it's still asking for a reply,
yes. And Spock's still connected to it.
It's gonna wipe out the crew.
Yeah.
Because he's an infestation, and Kirk basically says, "We know why it hasn't replied yet. We're not going to tell you unless you keep us all alive."
Absolutely. So it brings them to V'ger. It pulls the ship to V'ger, and we get the half wonderful, half really dodgy scene where the Enterprise is kind of docked on this piece of land, or a part of V'ger, and they get out onto the saucer section, which as a kid I thought was the coolest thing ever. Like, oh, they're on the saucer, that's really cool. And one shot looks amazing.
I do love that. I do love that little sort of the little lift comes up, and they're sort of on that little lift. That is really cool.
We get that there's a really nice shot of the saucer section, and a really kind of wonky shot from the side that doesn't look anywhere near as good. But it's a lovely idea.
The copy I have hasn't got the updated effects.
No, same.
I've seen them. There's the updated effects on that little bridge thing, the little causeway. It's so much better.
Oh, is it? Also, I might have to track that down.
Yeah, it's so much better. It's literally it's literally a bridge, so it's a smaller like run up to V'ger and stuff, so it looks better.
Yeah.
And the other one that I know that I've seen the clips from, which looks so much better, is Vulcan, because when he's on Vulcan, it's all like matte paintings.
Yes.
The new effects, they look like statues. And I wish I had the newer copy, because
I'm gonna have to track that down.
There's so much better. I mean, those matte paintings on Vulcan are good.
Oh, they're wonderful.
But you can tell they're paintings. The new effects are really good. You can they make everything look a lot more 3D, as it were.
Yeah. So Kirk and co. Walk, off of the saucer section, and they find V'ger, and we get our fucking Zardoz moment. With Kirk and and of course it's a probe, and V'ger is basically, there's some, which whatever, it doesn't really make much sense, but there's some dirt or something covering some of the letters on Voyager, and we see on the Voyager 6 probe, so it says V'ger. Doesn't really make sense when you think that, well, it was the machines didn't read it. Presumably they got the information from the probe, which would have told them it was Voyager, not V'ger, but whatever. And we get that Zardoz moment where he probably didn't need to spell it out for us, but whatever. Or at least he didn't need to rub the letters off. He could have just been like, it's Voyager 6. So
he says that the Voyager 6 fell into what they would have called a black hole. It's like, wait, what the hell do you call it?
Yeah, what is it now?
I'm sure they still call them black holes in later series, so I don't know.
Yeah, they do, because they say that, don't they say that Romulan warbirds in TNG have like artificial black holes inside them? Yeah, that's what powers the ships.
Forced quantum singularities.
Yes.
So I suppose they call them singularities.
Maybe. So it's a space probe from 20th century Earth called Voyager 6, and believed lost in a black hole.
Yeah, they basically get they explain that it probably crashed on this machine planet.
Yeah.
The machines basically fixed it, thinking it was a primitive version of themselves.
Yes.
And then they sent it back.
They sent it to fulfill its mission.
Yeah, and its mission was to go and explore and gather information.
It was to gather information on everything, right? That was its programming. So this advanced species were like, well, we can give you what you need to do that, and that is basically what they've done. And they've created this godlike entity that can basically just suck up everything in the universe and digitize it.
Basically supercharged it and sent it off into the universe.
Yeah, effectively.
It's like, off you pop home, there you go.
yeah. So, of course, it's on its journey back to Earth, which is why it was on a direct course to Earth. Not the first and not the last probe that goes directly towards Earth. Obviously, we get the Whale probe in a few movies' time.
And also, there's a similar episode in the original series. I can't remember which one it is now, but there's another
Changeling?
one with the
Is it Changeling?
Yes, Changeling. Yes,
yeah.
Changeling's got that probe as well, which is a similar sort of thing.
Yeah. It's weird actually because this movie does have a lot of similarities with that episode.
Storyline,
yeah, or like at least overall. But so they basically say, well, actually, you want the codes. We can give you the code. The code that you need, we'll give it to you. They contact the Enterprise. The Enterprise gets the codes from records, and they transmit it to V'ger, but it doesn't receive. V'ger doesn't receive it, they open one of the panels on the Voyager 6 probe, and they see that the wires have been cut. And they realize that Voyager or V'ger cut it itself to not get it to not get that shutdown code remotely. Because Voyager wants to meet the creator. Voyager wants to understand.
It wants to join with the creator, as she says. Voyager needs to join with the creator.
Yeah, so it realizes that the best way to fulfill its mission is it's done what it needs to do now. It needs to join the creator and become one with the creator. So obviously they realize at this point humans are the creator. And we get Decker who lost his command thanks to Dick Kirk. And I guess at this point Decker's probably like, I'm not getting this command back. Like you're gonna find a way to keep this,
I mean, he's literally sacrificing himself for love.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm getting to that, but yeah, I'm just saying, like, he's pretty much lost everything at this point, right?
Yeah.
Because he lost his command pretty much forever, because I don't think Kirk could give it back. And he's lost now the love of his life, which he obviously regretted. He regretted leaving her and all of that. That's kind of made clear.
You definitely get that impression.
So he's lost everything, and he wants to be with her, even if it is the facsimile of her. He wants to join with her, merge with her. So he offers to as a creator, as the creator, he offers to himself to V'ger, and him and the Lilia probe and V'ger merge, and they become a new life form, a new entity, as it's the birth of a new life form, and it just disappears into space. And obviously
big explodey sort of thing.
Big explodey thing, which good. And then of course Kirk is then Earth is saved, and Kirk and crew are on the bridge, and he says List Lilia and Decker is dead, and then he's like, oh no, wait, actually Listham is missing. And we never find out what happens to them. Good. They just disappear, and that's wonderful. They've created new life.
Well, there's something else now, aren't they?
There's something else.
And he says, did we just witness the birth of a new life form? And
Bones has that wonderful line where he's like, I haven't delivered a baby for ages. He's like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's like, it's been ages since I've done that.
It may be that's how we end up. That may be our next evolutionary step.
Yes, it could be. It could be our future. And then of course, that's
which is a very Star Trek thing.
It is. And then of course we have the crew all there on the bridge themselves again. It's the original crew back to how we remember them, and the order comes through. They're like, where to, Admiral or Captain, I guess, at that point. And Kirk says, that way, head that way. In a very Kirk way, when he's just like just out there. And of course the ship goes to warp, and end of the movie. And I do think, for all of its faults, this is a great movie, visually stunning even today.
It is probably the most visually beautiful of the Star Trek movies.
Absolutely.
And it's certainly the best model shots.
Oh yeah,
I mean, some of the later ones still have great model shots, so you still get great things. I mean, when you get, I still like the flyover you get of the Enterprise B.
I love that. Yes, I love that. Yeah.
And that's still beautiful and still great, but it's it's nowhere near as beautiful as the
no,
as the 10-minute ship porn in this.
Yeah, I mean, that model is just unbelievable, and the Katinga class at the start as well. Those ships look incredible as well. The model work is second to none. The visual effects are just stunning, and I think for the most part really even hold up to this day. They look incredible.
Yeah, they do. They still look fantastic.
Yeah, the uniforms not so much. To be honest, to put it kindly, and it's a very slow movie. It's also very slow movie. They basically took what could have been a half-hour episode and made it into a 2-hour movie.
Definitely. It really feels like that's what they did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, at least they didn't do a whole sort of like change Star Trek so much that it could have been like Discovery or something like that.
Well, yeah,
they could
absolutely,
have done that.
Which they did subsequently do.
At least they didn't do that. At least they stuck with a more cerebral. They just went too far the other way. They went too sort of sedate, as it were, and too sort of
But watching this yesterday night, I really felt like I was like, I know we got it a lot in the series, but I was like, man, I wish we had a proper science movie for next gen. That would have been really nice. A movie like this where there's no big villain. Every movie has to have a villain. Nope. Even Generations, which comes closest, I would say, still has a villain, right? Still has the big villain, and it's really refreshing, especially nowadays. It's really refreshing to watch a Star Trek movie where it's like there is no villain.
No,
it's not. There's no villain.
No,
here.
it's just. You could say that V'ger is a villain, but he's not a villain at all.
But I mean, a villain, they're going to fight, they're going to punch, they're going to shoot, they're going to, have battles in starships.
Well, that's what they said. They I think as Roddenberry said something along the lines of, Star Trek was Star Wars, which had came out, was basically like Buck Rogers.
Yeah,
he saw that as a Buck Rogers sort of thing,
and it is.
And he didn't want, and it totally is. It's completely that sort of thing. Lucas himself says that it's that's from his childhood.
Yeah,
and Roddenberry didn't want that for Star Trek. He wanted to keep the core of what Star Trek was.
And I think this movie does that. I do.
Well, I think what we should also say is look at the director. I mean, Robert Weiss had previously done West Side Story, The Sound of Music, The Andromeda Strain. He's a seriously big pedigree director.
Oh yeah, they were not messing around.
He had done some fucking hugely brilliant movies again that still hold up. You can still watch all West Side Story and Sound of Music are still great fucking movies. I mean, even though they're fucking is it Spielberg's fucking redoing West Side Story, isn't he? But which is like why?
So yeah,
really. But anyway, it was they hired a fucking big director for this.
They did.
They seriously took this completely seriously, and I think it shows. It definitely shows in the direction. It shows that it was an experienced eye and a real artistic flair for this movie.
Yeah. It's I think, like I said, it's a film I wasn't enamored with as a child, but I absolutely love it now, and I really enjoyed watching it last night.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
I still couldn't. I still now will not watch this movie again for a couple of years.
No, it'll be a while before I watch it again. But it's in fact, next time I watch it, I think I will probably watch it on a Sunday night or something like that with a bottle of wine, and just it's that kind of movie where I can just relax with a bottle of wine and just watch this slow. Some movies are very good for that kind of thing when you just want to relax and just watch. Sometimes you're in the mood to just let things kind of take their time, and
Because I think this is probably the second movie that I've seen least of the Star Trek movies.
This the only Star Trek movie I've probably seen less is probably Insurrection.
Mine's Nemesis.
Oh, actually, Nemesis as well. Sorry, Insurrection and Nemesis are both very. I think
I've actually seen Nemesis only twice.
I want to say I've seen it maybe about 4 times, because every sort of, I don't know, 5 years, I'm like, is it that bad? Maybe I should rewatch it, you know.
I haven't seen it for a long time, and I think I am due to go back to
I rewatched
it. I really haven't seen it for a long time.
Yeah, I rewatched it, I want to say, God, I guess at the start of this, because I've been rewatching all of Star Trek, and I think at the start I watched all of the movies again. So I watched it then for sure. But yeah, it's one of my lesser seen movies. But honestly, it's probably, I would probably rate it higher than pretty much all of the next gen movies.
I don't know about First Contact.
Yeah, I like a lot of First Contact, but there's
it's certainly a better directed and a better done movie than First Contact.
The only thing I love,
real love for First Contact.
I love First Contact as for what it is. I'm always annoyed about the Borg Queen. That's what really annoys me about First Contact, if I'm honest. That's the one thing that really annoys me.
Awesome.
It's awesome, but it's like, it just ruins the Borg.
I do think that they should have never introduced the Borg Queen. However,
it is awesome.
I do love
it's like, I know. It's difficult, isn't it? Because it's like, you've ruined the Borg, but that's really cool. In a very
wrong way, I do really fancy the Borg Queen as well. Kind of helped that it's Alex Krieg, and Alex Krieg was lovely when she was younger.
But yeah, so a wonderful, wonderful film, and it doesn't get the love it deserves. No, I always remember calling it the motionless picture when I was a kid. And now
that's it. I was going to say, that's when you hear people calling it like the slow motion picture and the motionless picture. And to be honest, it kind of is long. And it's I think it's the second longest Star Trek movie after.
It felt it as well. I'll be honest.
No, hang on. Is it the longest, or is it the? I think it. I can't remember. It's over 2 hours anyway.
It's a long movie.
It's a long movie, and you do feel it at times. There were the effects shots do go on too long.
They do, but for the most part, I think they're gorgeous enough that I can live with it. The scene that really sticks out to me is the bloody wormhole scene. The wormhole scene goes on. That's the one that really scene. Every time I see the movie again, I'm like, oh god, this scene. Just like no.
That scene you definitely want to be over.
Yeah,
because I think that is one of the things about this movie is it does feel, because it feels like a TV episode. It does feel slightly disjointed, and that it not that the pace changes so much, but there are times where you think it could have benefited from either a quicker pace or it certain bits, or literally just I don't know, a slight tweak to the writing or something.
Yeah, I think it could have done with another draft, for sure. It does feel like a half-hour episode stretched over 2 hours, and that is a problem.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to love here. This was the film, of course, that pretty much sidelined Roddenberry as well after this.
Yeah.
From his own franchise. They were like, well, take a seat. Yeah. Take a seat. But
I mean, to be honest, though, we were fucking lucky that the second movie happened.
We were.
Because I think it could have easily have... we may never have got the next gen. We may never have got.
No, we wouldn't have.
We're so lucky that they gave them a second chance.
Well, I think it did make a reasonable amount of money, which is.
Oh yeah, it did. It made its money back, especially in Europe and stuff. So it did. I think that they were a bit worried about it, but it made a because people wanted to see sci-fi was hot again,
and Star Trek because the syndication
and exactly it. People wanted to see those characters in a new iteration.
Absolutely.
So the will was there.
Yeah.
And it, like I said, when the second one came out, it lost a lot of people. People didn't want to go see it.
Yeah.
Because they thought, seriously, I cannot sit through another fucking movie like that again.
No.
And I think, thank God, people realised that, when I guess, like many of these movies, I guess the
home video
VHS saved it.
Yeah.
VHS completely saved it, and people went and saw the. It's literally, one of those times where it's like word of mouth. It's like, no, this is a great movie. You really need to see this movie. Yeah. It's a proper decent movie, and
But yes, in any case, safe. That's a story for another time, and I'm sure we will cover it.
Yeah, we will eventually.
But Star Trek the Motion Picture, highly, highly recommended. Definitely check it out if you haven't, especially if you're in the mood for something a bit slower and a bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
An experience.
As long as you're prepared for the sedate pace of the movie, I think you'll be okay.
Yeah. But in any case, we'll be back next week with our standard review show when we'll find out what films Matt has been watching. And until then, stay safe, take care, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.